Hello everyone and welcome to yet another video, and in this particular video we are going on a bit of a journey of discovery. You see, the Renault has been out of action now for, it must be about 5, 6, 7 months. I've completely lost track of how long it's been out of action now, but to put it lightly, it's the longest break that it's ever had. And really, as I've said before in previous vlogs, the reason it can't currently drive on the roads in the UK is because it does have a brake leaking issue, where it's leaking out brake fluid, which obviously means it's dangerous to drive it on the road. So for safety reasons, I haven't driven it on the road. But yeah, because I haven't as such needed it over lockdown, it's just sort of sat a little bit unloved away by a hedge for a while. So yeah, in this video what we're going to do is bring the car into the garage, take off the wheel and the hub, and just have a look to see exactly what is causing the brakes to leak in the first place. I do have a suspicion that it's the wheel cylinder that's leaking, but if I can just get it in here, take it all off and confirm that it is that, I can then order the part, and hopefully later on in this video you'll see me actually replacing it and hopefully getting the brakes up and running to their 100% potential. So let's go and bring the car in and we'll have a look at the brakes. When you're doing any sort of jacking up of the car in any way, shape or form, even when you're putting it on axle stands, it's always a good idea just to put a little chock in front of the wheel at the other end of the car, just so that you're not going to let the car roll forwards or backwards, whichever way you're lifting the car up. First, jack up your car. Next, locate a strong, structurally sound part of the car to put the axle stand underneath. And then the process of removing the rear wheel could begin. Taking the hub nut cover off was a cinch. A 30mm socket was used to remove the hub nut. Finally, the hub was removed and we could have a good look at what was causing the leak problem. Alrighty then, so we've taken the hub off the rear drum assembly, and essentially it looks like my guess as to what was wrong was correct, mainly because it's pretty much the only thing in here that could leak other than the actual pipework going to it. But because the pipework goes into the back of this and through into this, yeah, there's very little else that it could be. So it is definitely this, and you can actually see just there in my fingers. I'll try and zoom the camera in just a little bit, like that. You can actually see little bits of where it has leaked, which, yeah, that's our problem. So it is this. So what I need to do this week at some point is go ahead and, well, go out and buy another new one, essentially. But at least we now know what the culprit is, but what it does mean is having to take literally this all off. And yes, I do realise that the brake shoes are not in the best condition possible, but not too worried about those at the minute, because if it's going in for an MOT and things like that, I'll probably just get those changed whilst it's up there as well. But this is the thing that's stopping it from driving on the roads at the minute due to safety. So what I'm going to do is have a look in the good old Haynes manual, because I know how much some mechanics love them and so much some hate them, but have a look in that, see what I need to do to actually get this off, to replace it with a new one, and then, well, replace it with a new one and hopefully have a car that's roadworthy again so I can actually take it for an MOT. But yeah, exciting times ahead on that front. This is something I've never done before, so that should be interesting to see all the grime. It is a couple of days later, and because we're doing this by the book, because I've never tackled the braking system on the car before, it says we need to disconnect the battery because of the ABS pump on it, so that if you leave the battery connected, it might get air into the ABS pump, which means of course you're going to get air into your braking system, so obviously we don't want that. So what we're going to do is just disconnect the battery first. I've already got the panel off because you've seen how that's taken off in previous videos, so yeah, let's disconnect the battery. As we see in the previous clip, we've now got our new little wheel cylinder, which is excellent. But yeah, we need to obviously get this one off first. So first thing we need to do, clamp the hose to stop it from leaking any brake fluid or as little brake fluid as possible. Let's do that and get under the car. Unfortunately on the Mégane, this is where the rubber hose is. So if you've not got a full-on ramp, this is how it's going to be done. Bearing in mind I do have 3 axle stands placed. One there, and one just under the tow ball at the back, or tow bar as it were. So yeah, that's now clamped up, I believe. So now what we need to do is remove all the piping. Next stage in the brake removal process, or brake cylinder, is to take off this top spring so we can pull the shoes apart and be able to remove this eventually when we undo all the stuff at the back. So that's the next stage. Nothing more to say on it really, let's get on with it. With the power of editing trickery on my side, I made this look easy. I can assure you though, it was not an easy job because the spring is incredibly highly sprung because of obviously the forces it has to deal with, and you can't exactly get a pair of pliers in that easily either. Mission success. It is off and it isn't broken either, which is even better. We just need to remember where it goes back on. But the thing is, you can see actually which way it went round, because thankfully because of the leak it's leaked down onto it. So you can see exactly which way around it needs to go. An 11mm spanner was used to try and disconnect the union nut and brake lines from the wheel cylinder, but no matter what I did, the union nut simply refused to turn. The spanner, if anything, was starting to round the nut off in places, which is obviously not what you want. The nut and threads were still in good condition though. This is what 17 years of wear and tear will do. It'll throw up challenges at you. More penetrating fluid was used to try and remove the nut, but it simply did not want to go at all. One more attempt with the spanner was required, but it achieved nothing. In Dad's toolbox arsenal was this. It's called a Stilson, or pipe wrench. It's an adjustable tool used for turning soft iron pipes and fittings with a rounded surface. The design of the adjustable jaws allows it to sort of rock in the frame, so any forward pressure on the handle tends to pull the jaws tighter together. This was exactly what was needed to remove the union nut. Insert Mighty Car Mods music here for celebrations. Yeah, that's it, I got it. With the union nut released, removing the brake line from the cylinder was easy. There we go. That is it. I think we can get a socket onto these two. As it turned out, I was right. I could get a 10mm socket onto the bolts which hold the cylinder to the actual assembly. One bolt was incredibly easy to remove and it didn't find me at all. The other bolt, on the other hand, sit rep. We've managed to get one of the holding bolts out, which is absolutely wonderful, but the other one here on this side, which I'm not sure you can quite see on the camera, but if you can, basically what's happened is there's a bit of metal that's rusted between where the brake line goes into the back of it and where the bolt holds it on, and that's currently stopping me from actually getting a socket on it properly. It will go, I felt it sort of turn a little bit, but it's going to require a little bit of effort. Can you see what's just happened in this clip that me and Dad didn't notice that's going to cause a headache later on when putting it all back together? Pause the video now, add in the timestamp on screen and have a guess in the comments. The answer will be later in the video. As the old nuts and bolts were lined with inconvenient rust, it stands to reason that the old wheel cylinder would be too. I used a gentle persuasion tool, also known as a hammer, to help the cylinder break free of its oxidised prison. Along with the gentle persuasion tool, a set of grips were used to try and wiggle it free from the assembly. It's a little bit like doing tooth surgery, this. A little bit of a clean never hurt anybody. Right, now it's time to put it all back together again. Of course, the thing is, I can't actually see where the holes are. Mind out the gutters, please, everyone. Except for if I put it around like this, where I now can. Top job. I now have a different spanner with a little slot that can go over the brake line and then over the nut. If only I'd known about this particular one in the workshop arsenal sooner, it might have made things a lot easier earlier on. Oh well, never mind. So, using a pair of mole grips, which are actually built for welding, but in this case I've used them for the spring. The spring is now relocated. You can probably see some of the small scratch marks made. It was not at all easy to fit. It took quite a few attempts, which is why it was seen off camera, because I like to keep this this particular YouTube channel family friendly, and unfortunately during this it wouldn't have been family friendly. So that's why that was done off camera, but this is now all back together again. So literally used mole grips, pull them apart, job done. But yeah, all we've got to do now is put the drum back on and bleed the brakes, so that obviously we've got a full working braking system again. So let's put the hub back on. Before we get to that though, it's time to give you an answer to the question put forward earlier in the video. And it is the automatic brake adjuster had slipped out of the slot on the brake when I pulled the shoes apart to remove the cylinder. This meant that an extra 5mm of clearance was created when putting the spring back on, and it also meant that on several attempts the hub didn't sit correctly. However, once it was spotted, it was simply pushed back into the slot and all was well in the world once more. So the hub is back on, it spins freely. The little hub nut, or Mr. Seabrook hub nut reference, is back on as well, nice and tightly. So yeah, what we need to do now is fill up the brake reservoir, because of course all the brake fluid has leaked out of this, and top it up and then bleed the brakes, and that should be, once we put the wheel back on, job done, and we should have a properly working braking system on the car again. The brake line clamp was removed, which I was clearly very happy about. Anyone wondering, for the brake reservoir on a Mégane, well, that's it, just down there behind this little bracer bar, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, we're going to top that up with some more fluid now and hopefully bleed the system. So this little pipe here, this end here goes onto the little bleeder valve on the back of the wheel cylinder, because this is a non-return valve. So the idea is when you're pumping the brakes, bleeding them, the fluid comes up through here, goes through here and comes out this end, but what this does is stops any air from being sucked back in and obviously back into your braking system. So let's attach this, and then when we're ready we can start pumping the pedal. Whilst I was keeping an eye on the fluid and watching out for any air bubbles in the bleeder pipe, Dad was located inside the car in his Crocs, pressing the brake, forcing the fluid through the system and into the new cylinder. Pump man, pump. Communication between us was fairly important when doing this, but eventually the fluid started coming through the pipe. About 30 seconds later, with a new camera angle, you can see the amount of air bubbles coming through the pipe. This is obviously not ideal and definitely not what we want, because we want just a clear stream of fluid in the braking system. With much brake pedal pumping, the bubbles were soon removed and soon we got our clear stream of fluid, which is exactly what we wanted. The bleeder valve on the back of the cylinder was tightened up, and that was it, and that was job done. The Renault was only going to be sitting on the drive for the evening after a quick test of the brakes, and I was going to take the wheel off in the morning just to check for any signs of leakage, which may have meant that I hadn't tightened something up enough. So I wasn't worried about torquing it up properly at this point. The battery was swiftly reconnected and the cover was put back on. To top off the day, we tested the brakes firmly to make sure they were working as they should. It is the next day, and once again I brought the car back into the garage just to have a look over, just to make sure everything is as should be, because as I've said already in this video, this is the first time I've ever done anything brake related on a car, and I don't like leaving anything to chance in case, I maybe haven't tightened something up enough, or yeah, you get the picture. But either way, just taking the wheel off and just have a quick look. Down here you can see there's just the tiniest bit of residue. I'm not sure whether that's left over from the previous leak, which of course is why we ended up doing that in the first place. But as I said, because I'm not a man who likes taking things a chance, What I've just done off camera, because I don't need to show you it all again because I've already filmed enough of it I think with this video, just tightened up the little, bring you around the back, just tightened up the union nut just here. That did go a couple more mil round. Just made sure these are all tightened up as they should be and wiped away any excess. So if I give it another quick test on the drive, there shouldn't be any more leakage. But yeah, other than that, that just tightened up a little bit more. Nothing more really on that. So hopefully what I need to do now is put the wheel back on, essentially. But first, I mentioned the torque settings yesterday, or earlier on in this video, as you will see, for the hub nuts. I will say with the hub nut on this, the torque settings I have managed to find out are about 175 Newton meters, which, to put it mildly, is not a setting I have on my torque range. That only goes up to 100. But seeing as the car is going, well, its next destination when it goes out for a drive is going to be to the MOT centre, what I'll probably do is just torque it up enough, give it a bit of an extra hand tighten. Obviously you don't want to over tighten these things, but just get it up enough so that it can do the 10-minute journey to the MOT centre. So yeah, that's all we're going to do with this. It's not a lot left to do, but other than that, I'm pretty happy. The job seems to have done, well, I've done the job, it's done. The thing is with this channel is, although many of you will probably comment on it and say that there are many mistakes made and things like that, this channel here is all about basically having a go yourself, and I honestly do not mind showing my mistakes, because at least if I make a mistake, I can learn from it, and maybe you can too, which means you won't make the same mistakes when you maybe come to do a job like this. So yeah, I don't mind showing mistakes on this channel too much. But yes, all that's left to do now is put the wheel back on and I suppose book it in for an MOT, where at the MOT centre at the same day it can get a new water pump or gasket, whichever one's wrong, because as I've said in previous videos, it's attached to the timing belt. Timing belt is not really something I want to touch, because if you affect it you could end up messing up your engine, which obviously is not. Obviously touching a timing belt, and if it all messes up you're going to essentially ruin your engine, and that's obviously not what we want after all the hard work we've just done to get that working again. So yeah, I'm not going to touch that. I'm going to let the MOT guys do that essentially for me. But yeah, already as said though, the MOT centre, they all have the correct tools to get this torqued up right, and they can also just double check over the work that I've done just to make sure it's all 100% and there's no leakage or no extra little things, bolts or whatever that need replacing. But overall I'm pretty happy with that job. As I said, it might just be that was just a little bit of residue left over from the previous massive leak. On this note, what I'm going to do off camera, because you've seen enough of all this scene here, you don't need to see me putting a wheel on, but what I'm going to do is just put the wheel back on and yeah, looking in for an MOT. So thank you very much for watching. Obviously don't forget to subscribe if you're interested in seeing car-based content, and of course don't forget to comment. What do you think? Do you think I've done a reasonable job of this? As I said, bear in mind it's the first sort of braking based thing I've ever done, and of course yeah, I'm not an expert mechanic, I don't claim to be. This is just me having a go at it, and as I said, this channel's all about having a go. If I mess it up, that's my problem, not yours. So yeah, I don't know, do you think I did a reasonable job as a first attempt at this? As I said, obviously mechanic's going to check it over, but yeah. Anyway, I shall see you in the very next video, so for now, farewell.